Joining us now to discuss the court ruling on birthright citizenship is Jeremy Rosenthal, trial attorney and founding partner at Rosenthal, Calabas and Therian. Jeremy, thank you so much for joining us. Great to have you here. Now, Trump's executive order is an interpretation of the 14th Amendment's citizenship clause, arguing that the current largely accepted understanding is incorrect, that simply being born here doesn't automatically make you a citizen. Now, if this goes up to the Supreme Court, what will the justices have to look at to determine whether it's a well-founded interpretation?
Well, they're going to look at the language of the 14th Amendment. There's not a lot of case law that's on this, and that's because we've never really had to have this debate. It's always been fairly well settled. Reading directly from the 14th Amendment, it says all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States. It's hard to really argue with a straight face. That means anything other than if you were born here, you're a U.S. citizen. The Trump administration is trying to latch onto the language and to the subject of the jurisdiction, but I don't know that they have a lot of support that means that your parents have to have been in the country legally.
And what role might legal precedent play if the Supreme Court does take up the case?
It's always important. The last case to address this, though, was in 1898. So all of these arguments are frankly and candidly somewhat new. So we're basically sort of looking at this and trying to and just trying to use the plain language. You hear a lot of jurists, a lot of judges who say, look, we're not going to write the law from the bench. The law says what it means and it means what it says. We're not going to start digging at sources outside the law unless we really have to, unless these things are unclear. And to give sort of an analog, this judicial or this executive order, I don't know what Donald Trump's overarching strategy is. He's had quite a few of these executive orders, and maybe he's trying to draw attention away from other ones, knowing that some of them are going to have a big challenge. This executive order wouldn't be a lot different than Barack Obama or Joe Biden saying that the Second Amendment means we can come and take your weapons from you. There's not a lot of functional difference from it. The plain language, I think, is something that the judge in Seattle really focused on today. He said it was blatantly unconstitutional. It was a bad first day for the Justice Department in trying to advocate their position in this case.
Now, besides having the Supreme Court uphold his position, would amending the Constitution be the only other way to have Trump's executive order become the law of the land?
To have the executive order, yes, you would have to amend the Constitution, which is a very arduous process, and I don't think you would be able to get there. You have to have the states ratify that, and I don't think you're going to have the numbers to do that. What a cleaner fix would be probably some legislation. Think of it like this. The way that the Constitution works is we have articles which grant the government really sweeping authority and power, and then we draw that back with the Bill of Rights, and most of the amendments to the Constitution limit the government's rights and give rights back to the people. A lot of things are directed by the executive, the president. A lot of them are to be directed by Congress through our representatives. Executive orders, they sort of are kind of occupy this sort of weird space that's kind of in the middle, where Congress doesn't speak or the courts don't speak. The executive can issue an order. Donald Trump can say, okay, all American government map makers have to call the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America. He can do that. He can release JFK files. He can do things like that in absence of legislation. If they want to address immigration, that's typically done through legislation. The concern is that people are coming to the country illegally, having children, and then trying to piggyback on the fact that their children are citizens to say, look, I need to be a citizen too now because my children are here. The legislative fix would be to maybe try to address that issue and try to say, well, okay, if you have a child who is a citizen, here are the rules for how you have to become a citizen. And it's already difficult. My understanding is that you can't apply for that unless or until your child is 21 years old. So I think it's difficult to begin with, but that is a far easier fix than amending the U.S. Constitution.
Now, expanding on that, to change our requirements on citizenship could have huge implications on national and international levels. How would you describe the magnitude of Trump's interpretation of the 14th Amendment?
It's unspeakable. The way, if you read the executive order, he is saying that if your parents essentially were not here lawfully, then your citizenship is in question. That means people who have lived in America 40, 50, 60 years, have been raised and have thought their entire lives that they were U.S. citizens, are suddenly going to be subject to some type of immigration proceeding, or have their citizenship questioned if they travel, or have any type of legal issues or criminal issues. So it is titanic and seismic if this were to be upheld. But again, 22 states have filed suit to stop it. And like I said, the judge called it, he said, in 4 decades, I don't know that I've ever seen the Department of Justice take a position quite this far out there. So they didn't have a good first day as far as that goes.
Jeremy Rosenthal, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Have a great day.